Well, good evening. My name is Bryan, and I'll be your presenter this evening. Sorry, we're about 7 minutes behind. Their Zoom wasn't allowing me to share with you. So on the screen, does everybody see where it says community college non-credit?
Yes, we can see it.
Yes.
Okay, great. So the first thing I wanted to do is do a quick introduction. We're going to use some terminology that a lot of times people use interchangeably, and it can be confusing. So I want to make sure that we kind of vet that out first. So when we say non-credit education, at the community college level, we're used to courses that carry what we call a load, whether they be a 3 or 5 unit college load. Well, the community college also has what they call non-credit courses. And as you can see, the education code talks about that if you're really interested in learning more. And this is a really good way for individuals who are interested in teaching who don't have a master's degree, that have a bachelor's degree and or experience in a particular area, to get their feet wet at the community college and see if they really like teaching at that level. And so some of the classes that they offer at the community college in the non-credit are ESL, which is English as a second language. They have a variety of courses helping people with resume building, helping people with basic skills. We call ABE, adult basic skills education, all kinds of them. So with the short time that we have this evening, I just used ESL as an example. So in all California community colleges, it's going to be the same, and it comes out of Title V regulations. And that is, as you can see, a bachelor's degree in teaching English as a second language, or teaching English to speakers of other languages, or a bachelor's degree in education, English, linguistics, applied linguistics, any foreign language, composition, bilingual, bicultural studies, reading or speech, and a certificate in English as a second language teaching, commonly called TESOL, which may be completed concurrently during the first year of employment as a non-credit instructor. So I want to make sure everybody understands that there are opportunities if you don't meet exactly what's posted in the job flyer. And you got to look for those postings with the language like this that says that you may get 1 year or 6 months to complete a particular requirement to maintain that position, and they'll let you go ahead and start teaching. It says, or a bachelor's degree with any of the major specified in subparagraph 2 above, and 1 year of experiencing teaching ESL in an accredited institution. So that could be an adult school. And I've even seen people who work at the library that have been able to show that they were teaching English as a second language at a city or county library. Get a certificate in teaching English as a second language, which may be completed again concurrently. This time it says during the first 2 years of employment as a non-credit instructor. Now, this is going to segue into our presentation this evening about adult ed. It says possession of a full-time clear California designated subjects adult education teaching credential authorizing instruction in English as a second language. So people ask all the time, well, I thought that credentials weren't required at the community college. They're not required. However, if you have a California clear teaching credential, it may be one of the ways that you can obtain a teaching position. So the term clear, what that means is that the individual has been teaching a while and has completed all the coursework. And you'll learn more about that. But that coursework goes over teaching fundamentals, how to teach, lesson plans, course outlines, all kinds of stuff. And again, that's one way to meet the requirement. So in the non-credit arena, where it says career development and college preparation, CDCP, I won't bore you with the side that talks about the bill, but we'll look more on the right side where it talks about non-credit courses offered in the 4 distinct categories. So if you're interested in teaching at a community college in the non-credit area, we already talked about ESL, but now you're going to see we're talking about elementary and secondary basic skills and short-term vocational and workforce preparation. So the community colleges have this opportunity to provide certificates for individuals through short-term training. So it could be teaching individuals how to be an LVN, could be teaching individuals how to be a certified nursing assistant, very short-term programs where the individual could learn and acquire skills to gain employment. So that's why it says vocational and workforce preparation. That again could include the resume building, basic remedial skills to help individuals become successful and learn how to apply and keep jobs. So again, with the short-term time that we have, we're going to just leave it at that for the non-credit, and there'll be a short 10, 15 minutes at the end where we can hopefully answer any of your questions. So now we're looking at, again, at the community college, it says colleges may offer high school diploma program as described in California Code of Regulations, as I mentioned, Title V. The adult high school diploma conveys the same status as completed of a K-12 high school. So in other words, it's accredited by WASC, which is Western Association of Schools and Colleges. So now we're going to segue into adult education at the K-12 arena, which is where you're going to need a designated subjects adult education teaching credential. In adult education now, we're talking about like El Monte Rosemead Adult School. Los Angeles Unified School District has a number of adult education centers and schools. So adult education programs offer their communities both state-supported general education courses and community education fee classes. And those fee classes that we're talking about are basically enrichment. So there could be a sewing class that somebody wanted to offer. It could be something that basically is not going to be a long-term program, but the school is not going to get what we call apportionment. And in the college arena, we call it FTE, which is full-time equivalent. In the K-12 adult ed arena, we call it ADA, which is average daily attendance. So some of these areas are going to be the GED or diploma preparation. Again, the English as a second language. And now you see it talks about citizenship courses. And that can be offered at the community college as well. Parent education, which is really very big. A lot of the adult schools have paired in with the Los Angeles County Social Services. And social services have court-ordered individuals to go to parent education classes that were deficient in a variety of areas. And these classes really address some important things, how to take care of the minor children, how to get them to medical appointments, vaccinations, helping them be successful in school. It's just a wide variety of programs. Very important and vital. When you look over at the vocational education, there's so many classes that we couldn't possibly in this short time cover all of them, but I'll just throw a couple out. Could be automotive repair, which is very important and very technology driven now. It could be helping individuals overcome obstacles that are coming out of the correctional system or out of state prisons and helping them gain employment that's going to help them with their families and their future so that they're not reliant upon the criminal justice system. The other thing, again, as you look at is older adults. And the older adult programs are very popular. And as we dig into the credentials in a little bit, you'll see some of the subjects. It's everything from mature driver to computer education, because a lot of seniors don't know how to navigate the computer system. They're not really aware even of the cell phone technology. Then under community education, you can see as kind of an example, we have community education classes cover a wide selection of interests, which include art, music, dance, languages, business and finance, and again, the computer areas. And sometimes there's even programs that are hybrid where people can do online and also in person. So some of the resources I have here, you're welcome to navigate, and in the chat we can put some of that information as well. The best resource is going to be the California Commission on Teacher Credentialing, because the CTC governs all credentials in the state of California. So as we kind of navigate this, we're now going to adult education subjects, and in red you'll see I have non-academic. So in red, you'll also notice I have no CBEST required to obtain this type of credential. And if you're wondering what an ESD is, it's an employing school district. They may require a basic skills test, which is what we often call a mini CBEST. So LA Unified is a good example. Even though the state of California may not require a test, LA Unified School District requires the basic skills test for all areas before they hire an instructor. And it's a watered down version of the CBEST. And the CBEST is the California Basic Education Skills Test. And we'll start with adult ed, non-academic. The individual would need to show the Commission on Teacher Credentialing on letterhead signed by an administrator, a manager, a supervisor, who attests to the fact that the individual has 3 years of full-time experience directly related to the subject to be named on the credential. And if it's part-time, you may use education and a combination of experience as well. And again, in this short presentation, I'll just give you kind of an example. If someone, let's say, had been an automotive technician at Firestone or Goodyear, and they had 3 years of full-time paid verifiable experience, and they also had obtained some of the certification through Firestone and some of the other certified training institutions, they would be able to show both of those. The individual would have to have a high school diploma minimum by one of the following methods: either a high school diploma or a diploma based on passage of the GED, or if it's a foreign equivalent, there is a whole procedure that the Commission on Teacher Credential uses to see if that will in fact meet the requirement. General subjects is the new term that the Commission is using. They're phasing out the term non-academic, but as of today, we're still referring it as non-academic. That may be listed on the credential. So here's some of the subjects, again, for older adults, very important age group to help and service and provide alternative and education for. We have art, and that's going to include adaptive art, creative arts, adults with disabilities, art and crafts, creative arts, older adults, decorative arts, interior design, performing arts for older adults. Their list can go on and on. Those are kind of the main things. Health and safety is very popular, and it includes adaptive physical education, adults with disabilities. So it might include some occupational skills in helping them be self-sufficient. It also includes teaching first aid and CPR, environmental safety. Those conditions would include everything from heat, air conditioning, levels, not fixing them, but understanding the conditions of them. Health education, very similar to health in high school, basically going over medical appointments that older adults need to keep, how to check their blood pressure, diabetes, walking, exercise, health, again, for adults with disabilities, physical fitness for older adults, which can include anything from an exercise class to walking. And it would also include nutrition, physical fitness, conditioning. Then when it says safety for the older adults, under safety education, that it could include the mature driver course for individuals that are 55 and over. It could include a variety of classes dealing with personal safety. Family education, very, very important subject. It includes subjects of adaptive computer technology, as simple as utilization of the cell phones, helping the senior citizen, the older adult, navigate the cell phone, understanding that there's some fraud out there and there's apps that they have to be careful of utilizing, all kinds of reasons why computers and cell phones, the individual needs to be careful that's using it as to what information they give. Then communication skills, clothing construction, and there's the dietetics and food management. And it includes food preparation. And that wouldn't necessarily be for seniors, it could be for anybody. Some of the adult schools have classes. I know Baldwin Park Adult School for years had a restaurant. In the restaurant, through the adult school, the students that worked in there actually learned how to get a job working in that industry. And there's some certifications that they can get through the adult school classes. So if that's something that you want to teach and that's something that you have an area of interest in, this would be the type of credential you would need. Public affairs is everything from being what we call a public information officer, PIO, to disseminating information, whether it be written or via the news media. Self-maintenance, you'll notice in the brackets, self-maintenance is specifically going to be for adults, or self-maintenance is going to be for adults and with disabilities. So these type of programs are offered at the adult schools. Financial literacy, very important, and it's been coming up over and over again that individuals need to know how to balance their checkbook, how to utilize credit cards, to utilize the interest on checking accounts and savings accounts, and also credit cards, so that you're not paying interest, but you're actually gaining interest and gaining points. So those are kind of the down and dirty subjects. Where I have career technical education, if you're taking notes, this is something you really want to key into, that we have 15 industry sectors. And in C.T.E, these are classes that are offered both at the adult school and also in the high schools. A lot of you probably remember the old ROP terminology. Some schools still have ROP. That's where that term came from. And this one is also very interesting. We're just talking about adult ed now. This adult ed subjects are academic, and on the top you'll see it says CBEST and BA degree are required, no exceptions. Well, we'll get into it. The state of California has been waiving the CBEST test up until, I believe, June 30th or July. It continues to be waived. But as of right now, we're going to just go forward with this. In red, you'll see this is another thing, if you're taking notes, you want to write down. It's a little kind of a side trick that very few people know about. For the adult ed credential, if you have a bachelor's degree, anything that you have 10 upper division units in, if it's one of the subjects that's taught at the adult school and you meet the requirements, then your bachelor's degree, you can use those units. It's almost a double counting of the units if they're upper division. If you don't have it, then let's say you want to teach health. If you have 20 lower division units, you can teach health and with your bachelor's degree and get that on a teaching credential designated subjects. The adult ed academic areas are generally thought of to be similar in nature to the high school or even elementary curriculum. So if you look over on the side, you'll see it says English as a second language. Again, I'm using that because ESL is one of the most common subjects at the adult schools and community college non-credit. So the credential holder must possess a bachelor's degree or higher, and it has to be from a regionally accredited college or university to include a degree, major, certificate. Notice that I have in bold or completion of 20 semester units or 10 upper division semester units in one or any of the following. And you can kind of see those are similar to what we talked about earlier. If you go back and look on the other side, you'll see the program sponsor may only recommend for designated subjects adult ed credentials in the academic subject areas below. So let's go down a little bit more, and you're going to see some of these subjects, and there's lots of openings. And we'll talk a little bit toward the end, but I want to make sure that everybody remembers this term, EdJoin, 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 because EdJoin is where you want to go to look for these positions in both the K-12 and the community colleges, non-credit areas, especially the adult schools. So when we're looking at elementary and secondary basic skills, this includes basic education grades 1 through 8. And if you're thinking, well, isn't that elementary school? It's at the adult school. These are adults, and an adult is defined as somebody 18 years of age or older. And these individuals, for whatever reason, did not get a high school diploma. And in this arena, 1 through 8, they didn't get what we would call the junior high school certificate or diploma or elementary school. So we're talking about courses that are very remedial: arithmetic, reading, individualized high school learning labs, and there's the GED again, and then contract class settings. That means that the adult school has contracted with an employer. The employer would like the teacher from the adult school to come to the workplace and provide classes at the workplace. You'll notice that I have a note here. Credential holders must possess a bachelor's degree or higher completed at a regionally accredited college or university. And there's that completion of 20 semester units with at least 3 units in 4 of the following 6 areas. And for most people, this is going to be no problem at all. If you look at your transcripts, you probably have this without any problem. As you can see, it's English, mathematics, science, social sciences, fine arts, language other than English. Commonly, you've heard it as a foreign language requirement. So again, on the other side of the page, you can see it's kind of slightly bolded where it breaks it down for you. And when it talks about mathematics, don't worry, it's not talking about higher level math. It's talking about your real basic math, because that's what is going to be offered at the adult school. So now, when I said about career technical education, who can put in the chat for me what those career areas are? How many are there? I mentioned them for career technical education, and we call them sectors. And what are they? Let's see if you can put that in the chat. So we're looking at career technical education. These courses prepare students from mid-trades in how many sectors? If doing a CTE credential come directly from those industry areas. And you notice it mentioned middle school. Lately, we're seeing a lot of CTE programs, which is career technical education, being offered at the younger areas, the middle school areas. So now, when we look at the authorizations for a CTE credential, a California career technical education credential can have more than one area on it. And as you can see on the left-hand side, we have 15 of these industry sectors: agriculture and natural resources, arts, media and entertainment, building and construction trades, business and finance, education, child development, and family services. So I'm going to pick on number 5, and I'll give you an example. Let's say that we have someone who has worked in a California public school full-time 3 years as what we call an educational aide or a teacher's aide or a teacher's assistant. If they have verifiable documents stating that from a principal or human resources administrator, and they have all the other requirements, they can theoretically teach people how to become instructional assistants, teachers' aides in both the adult school and the K-12 arena. So obviously they're not going to be teaching this in elementary school, but in middle school, a lot of times they have CTE classes, career exploration, where the students are interested in going into education and maybe becoming a teacher's assistant or an educational aide. And I apologize if there's people for the other areas that don't see that. I can't illustrate all of it with the short time that we have. Then we look at child development and family services. That would be included in it. So on the teaching credential, it's going to state education, child development, and family services. So these 15 areas that you're looking at, known as industry sectors, the credential will have that listed on it. And if you qualify and you again have that documented experience that has to be verifiable, because there are employers that will call and verify that you have that experience, you can get more than one, more than two on a document. We call it a credential document. So energy, environmental, and utilities, I'll just kind of throw that out there. We talk about air conditioning, the levels inside, the environmental conditions, mold, mildew. Talk about utilities, public utilities, gas, electric, just those type of things if an individual had that experience. Engineering and architecture. A lot of high school students and middle school students very interested in interior design, fashion and interior design, health science and medical technology, hospitality, tourism and recreation, information and communication technologies, manufacture and product development, marketing, sales and service. Public service is really a wide gamut. It includes police, fire, paramedics, EMTs. Then transportation, a lot of area of interest with high school students as far as getting positions working in the transportation, maybe not so much being a bus driver, maybe working as a tram operator, other areas. So this career technical area continued. Individual must satisfy all of the following requirements. So if you're interested in this, you want to make sure you document down in your notes there 3 years of work experience directly related to each industry sector to be named on the credential. 1 year is going to equal a minimum of a certain number of clock hours. The experience may be full-time, part-time, paid, or unpaid. So some volunteer experience may actually help qualify you for a credential. And if you really want to look at the terms and definitions, I encourage you to go to the CTC webpage. There's no way around the high school diploma requirement. It's one of three things, as we mentioned. It's going to actually be a high school diploma or a GED, possession of a foreign equivalent, which has got to go through the equivalency process. Now, I know that there's a lot of people that are wondering about the CBEST test. So I have some resources here, and those resources can be in the chat. We're going to have them available for you so that you can get the information about the California Basic Skills Assessment Test. So now, if you have any specific questions so far, if you want to put something in the chat, please feel free to do so. So I think somebody was asking the difference between an adult education credential and an adult ed credential. So on the screen, you can see that the career technical education credential, it says the primary, or what we call preliminary designated subjects. So the question is, preliminary means it's the first one that you get. And if you receive a preliminary designated subjects CTE credential, there's going to be some things that you have to do to clear that credential. And one of them is going to be that you have to teach. And so the law says that you have to actually teach the subject named on the credential in the appropriate grade level that's authorized by that credential. Excuse me. Then there's coursework that's going to be required for you to clear that credential. Once you clear that credential, then your chances of getting a permanent position with a K-12 district or an adult school are going to be much better, because you can't get a permanent position until you actually have cleared the credential. And let's see, we have a couple other questions. So on the CBEST, one of the things that question came up, what happens if you get hired and then after you get hired, the district wants you to take the CBEST? Yes, that is something that can happen. It will not affect your credential, but it could affect your employment. And the chances of that happening in a CTE program are pretty rare. Where that happens is generally when you get a position at a high school and they don't have enough students to fill your CTE classes. They may ask you to get what we call an added authorization on your credential so that you can teach something else, which will then allow you to maintain your position and hopefully be part or full time. And that was the other question that I see here. Yes, unfortunately, most of the adult ed and CTE positions are part time when you first start out. But once you've done all the things that are required, and I see that a few of you are asking what that is. Well, what's going to happen is you're going to have to take some courses from the university. And those courses are going to go over teaching methodology. They're going to go over health education for teachers, mandated reporting of suspected abuse or neglect of minors. It's going to talk about how to deal with students with disabilities, how to communicate with students that are what we call special need and have an IEP, and how those students are going to be able to get the information that you're sending out to them and you're teaching them if they're not able to understand in basic ways. And what that means is there may be some different methods that the college will teach you during these credential programs that will help you in being able to communicate with the student and have the student be successful, because that's what it's all about. We want the students to be successful in what they do. And I think we have some other questions about positions. Okay. At the community college level, I'll use Rio Hondo as an example. You can go to the Rio Hondo Human Resources webpage. And if you navigate through that, you're going to see that in that webpage, it's going to talk about the various positions that are open, teaching positions. So I'm hoping everyone can see this on the screen. I apologize, it's not going to let me share that with you. But if you go, you want to write down this word equivalency. So again, I'm using Rio Hondo as an example because https www.riohondo.edu/HR. And if you go to that, what's going to happen is that basically you'll see that for every academic position, there's a set of requirements, whether it's non-credit or credit. Unfortunately, I know a few of you have questions about credit, and that can be something in the future we can talk about. But for today, we're talking about the non-credit. And a couple people asked, do you have to have a credential to teach at the non-credit? No, you do not. You do not. That is one way of meeting the requirements, but you don't have to actually have a credential. So back to the non-credit programs. There are some community colleges that are hurting for, not students, for staff members so badly that they went to their board of chancellors and they asked if they could have an equivalency. And that equivalency, I'll give you kind of an example. If you have an AA degree, let's say in health, and then you were working at a gym, you were doing something maybe in the nursing field, in certified nursing, and you can document that. There are cases where the community college will hire you as a community college non-credit instructor, generally part-time, and allow you 1 or 2 years to get the courses that they're feeling you're deficient in. So that's very important. Let me see what other questions we have in the chat.
How do you document your work hours?
Okay, excellent. So the question came in, how do you document your work hours? So it's very important that when you document the work hours, you again get your employer to have it on letterhead. And on that letterhead, it's going to state the title you held, and it's also going to specifically talk about the duties you performed. And it doesn't have to be a long 10, 12 duties. You can have probably 5 specific duties that you did, the time period, which includes the month and the year. And it doesn't really matter, I hate to say it, whether you were good at the functions you performed. The Commission on Teacher Credentialing is looking for the occupational areas that you actually worked in. Okay, somebody was asking about child development. Absolutely. And so when we mention education, when we look at these 15 sectors, if you look at education, child development is right there with education and family services. So a good example would be East LA Community College has a huge child development program. And so I haven't seen if they have any non-credit classes there, but I do know that they have academic side of the house. But they could. And that's another thing. I know we don't have a lot of time left, but one of the things that you want to think about is just because there's not a position open doesn't mean that the college wouldn't be open to you, developing your own class. And I've done that personally. So you can go to most of the non-credit deans or associate deans or director coordinators and ask them for the form, and they'll have a form that talks about, can I offer a course? And it may end up being that you start out what we call fee-based, where that's not the apportionment side of the house. So all the non-credit classes at the community colleges are free, but they do have oftentimes fee-based classes. I know I've seen it at Citrus Community College, where they were looking for individuals to develop specific classes. I'll give you an example. I saw one for dog grooming. They wanted somebody who could teach dog grooming class, and they had a heck of a time finding somebody, and it was going to be a fee-based class. So what that means is the students are going to pay a nominal fee, because remember, community colleges are nonprofit. The instructor most probably would go into what they call revenue sharing with the college, where you would not be an employee, but you'd probably be a 1099. And a lot of the community colleges have done that. And some of the universities, oftentimes through their extension programs or community services, have done that also. So I think we have some other questions about the CBEST test. And let me see if I can read this. Okay, if you have a higher degree, do you still need GED? No. If you have a bachelor's degree or higher, you do not have to have a high school diploma. That's the minimum standard, so you'd be fine. And I'm looking more at some of the questions. And when people ask me about the salaries and the pay, so let me give you an example. The non-credit side of the house, I've seen the lowest $25 an hour for an instructor. And generally, the highest I've seen is about $80 an hour. So it really depends upon the community college. It depends upon the instructor's qualifications, because there are some schools that will, quote unquote, reward the instructor for holding a bachelor's degree over. In other words, if you have 10 units beyond a bachelor's degree, 20 units beyond a bachelor's degree, if you hold a master's degree, if you have a doctorate degree, there's usually a stipend available for individuals for that. I'm looking in the chat. So somebody was asking about agriculture. So on the CTE credential, agriculture, a lot of LA Unified schools still have a horticulture agriculture class, and it's offered through their CTE program. And that is going to be something that's going to most of the time be high school, but it could be adult school. I don't know that I've seen it at the community college level. And let's see, what's another question? Okay, somebody's asking, can you have more than one credential? Absolutely. I myself have more than one credential. The reason for having more than one credential, though, is generally because you may want to have one to teach in the K-12, one to teach adult school. It depends on the subjects. It's not necessarily that you're going to get a job if you have more credentials. It depends upon a variety of factors. And again, you want to go to that units beyond the bachelor's degree or included in. So I'm got on the screen because a few questions about what an LEA is. So you have to be recommended by a university or an approved local educational agency. So the Los Angeles County Office of Education is what we call an LEA. Cal Poly Pomona, Cal State LA, Cal State Dominguez. A lot of those agencies are universities, and they're also what we call CTC approved to recommend people for a credential. The only body that can give a credential in the state of California is CTC, which is the California Commission on Teacher Credentialing. Okay, I see a question here. Can a person have non-academic and academic? Yes, they can. It'll generally be the same document, the same credential, but I'll give you an example. Let's say a teacher wants ESL, which is academic, but then they also want to have art. So they would have both of those subjects named on that document. And that's kind of the terminology. But you would need the CBEST and a bachelor's degree for the academic area. And then for the non-academic area, you would again have to show the qualifications. But I have seen individuals that didn't have experience in another area, but had a combination of the units, as we mentioned, either 20 lower or total or 10 upper units in a particular area. So I see a question here about nutrition. So nutrition would be under health and safety, and some very good questions, outstanding. If you look in front, you'll see that it's got some areas in bold. Art, it has health and safety, family education, family literacy, and career technical education. I know it's confusing, but the adult ed credential also has CTE. I would suggest if you're looking at CTE, you get the CTE credential, not the adult ed with the CTC authorization, because the CTE authorization is going to limit you to just adults. And that's another question that came in that's outstanding. And that is, can high school students also take adult classes? Very rarely. Years ago, it was much more common, but generally the credential is going to state you're authorized primarily for adults. So you may have one or two minors in the class, but it's pretty rare. So very good questions. Some resources that we have, some areas, and in no way am I saying one school is better than another, but Cal State University San Bernardino has an outstanding CTE program, and most of the coursework is going to be online, and that's just the way things are right now. There are some that are not online, but most of them are online. So we have some more questions coming in. Okay. So it looks like we've got about 5 minutes, and I want to see if I can show you this real quickly, if this is going to work. I apologize. For some reason, it won't let me show this to you, but what I will tell you in the 4 minutes that we have left is that if you go to Cal State San Diego, Cal State San Bernardino, any of the state universities, the benefit to taking the coursework there is that those units are going to be able to be used toward the bachelor's degree and or a master's degree. If you go through an extension program, it may be appealing to you because you might be able to get done faster. It's going to cost more money, and the units are generally not going to be able to be used towards a degree. So that's just something that you really need to think about. Any more questions in the chat? No, it looks like we've answered everybody. Let me just see real quickly. And I know it's confusing, so I'll put it back up because a couple people had questions. So I have it in red. This is for the adult ed credential. Again, the good question came in. do all 20 units have to be lower? No, it can be a combination. So any combination that's going to equal a minimum of 10 upper division units. So let's say that an individual wanted to teach at the adult school and had 10 upper division units within their bachelor's degree in math. Yes, to answer your question, it would be possible to get math added to that adult ed credential. And again, that would be an academic area. And let's see, is there any other questions in the chat? No? Okay, well, I hope I've answered your questions. I know it's difficult, and I think I want to just go over one more thing. A couple people were a little confused on this, so I want to make sure I cover this in the few minutes we have. Commonly called C.T.E, which is specifically designed academic instruction delivered in English. And that is going to be a requirement that's going to be built into your credential program. So when you get the preliminary credential, that won't be a requirement, but to clear your teaching credential for both adult ed and the C.T.E credential, you're going to need that. And it really, as I mentioned, helps you have an understanding of how to deliver materials in an understandable manner so that non-English learners will really be able to have some good takeaways. Let's see, do we have any other question? Okay, very good question. So building and construction trades includes custodial. Somebody asked about custodian. Yes. And LA Unified, El Monte, a number of the adult schools under their C.T.E, Career Technical Education, have training programs to train individuals to get jobs as custodians. And those are generally very high paying jobs for somebody right out of high school. And all the custodian generally requires is that they have this training that's offered. LA Unified does a really good job of making sure that the individuals that take that training get into their program and get a position as a custodian. Is there one more in the chat? Okay. Yes, to answer your question, if you have C.T.E, you can have an adult ed also. So I know I keep mentioning ESL. I'll just mention adult basic ed. Somebody could have an adult ed credential in adult basic ed, and then let's say a career technical ed credential in automotive repair. So I hope that we've answered your questions, and I know that it's difficult to in a short period of time, and I hope I kind of wetted your whistle a little bit. And in the chat is my phone number and contact information. We'll have my email in the chat so that we can answer any other questions that you might have.
PowerPoint.